couple of jokes for you to just kind of help you relax for a second before we get going. I read some things. The way that children see things. The way that children see things. The woman tells a story that she was driving along one day with 3 children in the car. They were ages 5, 3, and 2. And as she was driving along, she saw a little convertible on the left-hand side of the road. And in the convertible was a blonde-headed lady on the right-hand side. She could see her blonde hair waving in the breeze. And then as she pulled up alongside her, the lady jumped up inside of the convertible and started waving, and she was stark naked as she was waving at her. The 5-year-old looked at his mom and said, "Mom, that woman's not wearing her seatbelt." Children see things a little different than we do. The little boy opened the family Bible, and he was fascinated as he fingered through the old pages with the beautiful hand-drawn photo pictures you might remember from old Bibles. They had a huge Bible, and he was flipping through there. And as he came across something, he found a leaf stuck in between the pages, a really large leaf. And so he pulled that out, and he was examining that leaf and kind of wondering what was going on. And the mom said, "Well, son, do you realize what that is?" And he said, "Sure, this is Adam's underwear." Thought that they just left that behind. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 15. We're going to read verses 15 through 18. "You know that everyone in the province of Asia has deserted me, including Phygellus and Hermogenes. May the Lord show mercy to the household of Onesimus, because he has often refreshed me and was not ashamed of my chains. On the contrary, when he was in Rome, he searched hard for me until he found me. May the Lord grant that he will find mercy from the Lord on that day. You know very well in how many ways he helped me in Ephesus." I think what I want to do is I want to create a brand new staff position. We're going to pay someone to do something around here. Well, what we want to do is we're going to pay someone to become the refresher. To become a refresher. See, because what many people aren't aware of is that everywhere Paul traveled, he carried someone with him. And every time he had someone with him, their main job was to encourage Paul. Was to refresh Paul. See, and so in that way, we need someone who's just there to refresh, encourage, challenge, build up. That's the way the body of Christ works. Now, I was just kidding about the paying role part. But the reality is that we need someone like that in our lives. We need someone who can encourage and build us up. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. How we can refresh one another. Paul carried Barnabas. He carried Silas. We know that Mark traveled with him and Timothy traveled with him at different points in his ministry, just to be a person to bring encouragement. A little background for you. Where was Paul when he wrote these verses? Paul had just been released from home prison and was placed in an actual prison cell. He was in the city of Rome. It had been his goal up to that point to go to Rome. Paul had traveled from Antioch, which is in Turkey, and traveled all over Turkey and all over Greece in all of his travels, ministering in different churches. Paul would usually stay for 2 or 3 years to build up that group of believers. But at this point, he was in prison. He was in the jail cell, which their jail cells weren't like ours, where we have air conditioning and you can go out and exercise and play basketball and watch videotapes. And he was in a dungeon and he was chained to the wall. So he wasn't going anywhere. Not only were there iron bars holding him in, but they literally chained their prisoners to the wall. And so that's why Paul said that Onesimus wasn't ashamed of his chains. He wasn't ashamed of the fact that he was in bondage and he was chained to the wall. And so we know that Paul spent his last days in Rome. I understand that this is one of the last things that he ever had a chance to write, was a letter to Timothy. He wrote a couple of letters while he was there in jail, and this is one of the things that he wrote, was the letter of 2 Timothy, to bring encouragement to Timothy, and at the same time, to ask for encouragement for himself. And we'll get to there in just a second. Paul was probably feeling just a little bit nostalgic as he looked back on his ministry. If you have your Bible, if you go to 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 9. "Do your best to come to me soon, for Demas, in love with this present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. Crescens has also gone to Galatia, and Titus to Dalmatia. Luke alone is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you, for he is very useful to me in ministry. Tychicus I have sent to Ephesus. When you come, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas, also the books, above all the parchments. Alexander the coppersmith did me great harm. The Lord will repay him according to his deeds. Beware of him yourself, for he strongly opposed our message. At my first offense no one came to stand by me, but all deserted me. May it not be charged against them. But the Lord stood by me, and He strengthened me, so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed to all the Gentiles might hear it. So I was rescued from the lion's mouth. And the Lord will rescue me from every evil deed and bring me safely into His heavenly kingdom. To Him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. And greet Priscilla, Aquila, and the household of Onesimus. So there's Paul in this cold dungeon, and he's thinking back. And first he reflects back and he thinks about the fact that he was abandoned by everyone. Ever been left out by everyone? Left behind? People forgot about you? Something bad happened in your life and they all go, oh, well, God's not in your life. I've got to leave. And sometimes the people that you think you put your trust in and that you believe in can be the ones who hurt you the most. And that's what happened to Paul. He said, here's some men that I invested my life in, and here's what they're doing now. They're betraying me, and they abandoned me, and they don't care anymore. And as he's going through this list, and he's sitting in prison, now imagine, if you're sitting in a cold dungeon, strapped to the wall with chains, you're not going to be very happy about that. And so Paul's thinking about how hard that things have been, and how people have abandoned him, and then out of nowhere, he remembers someone. He remembers that person who brought him refreshing. He remembers Onesimus, who said that he brought him refreshing to his soul. And what does Onesimus mean? It means, his name actually means one who brings help. One who brings help. So he lived up to his name. Do you know what your name means? Anybody here know what their name means? See, it was important to us when we named our children that they would know what their name actually means. Jordan's name means descended from heaven, having a future. Her name is Destiny Jordan. So actually it means having a future, descended from heaven, but we call her Jordan. So actually she's a gift from God to us. Nathan's name literally translates out, Nathan Jeremiah, means the voice of the Lord, one who speaks for God. Because we knew before he was ever born that he was going to be a prophet. I don't know exactly how that's going to work out, but I knew that, and I don't call him in ministry. I don't say, son, you're going to be a prophet, you have to do it. I just let God do it. Just like he did this morning. God will call him, God will speak to him. And it's neat because sometimes God gives him some really neat insights, even at 7 years old. So we have these different names. But Onesimus means that he was that person who would bring help, encouragement, that he would strengthen him up. And you know what? Just because he was there, he had to bring refreshment to God, to Paul's heart. He had to come and build him up and bring encouragement that nobody else could offer him. And then the next thing that we find out was he visited Paul when it could have cost him a great deal. Now, one thing that you don't know is that Onesimus actually lives in the city of Ephesus, which is in Turkey. Paul is in Rome, which is in Italy. It was over 1,000 miles, way over 1,000 miles, and you're not traveling that with an airline. You know, we're going to, a couple of weeks, we're going to take a vacation as our family. We're going to hop in an airplane. We're going to fly down to Florida, and then we'll fly back. It takes about 2 hours. A whole lot better than the 22 hours it took the last time we went there. Because we drove in the car, and the whole time, how much farther? Where is it? Oh, you know, the whole time your kids are just driving you crazy with questions, and you're like, okay, no more questions for 20 minutes, and we'll pay you a quarter or something. You know, you're just trying to do whatever you can to get them to stop asking the same question over and over. So, and here's this man. It would have taken him weeks, or possibly even over a month, to travel, because he would have had to either jump on a ship or boat. Really, what we would consider a ship today is the size of the huge building, but a ship to them was just usually a small boat. And they would travel across the Mediterranean Sea. And that could take a great deal of time. Storms come up, shipwrecks happen. You're just taking a lot of chances to travel that way. Another way could be hop on a horseback or take a cart and go and travel that way. And it can take a long time, and it's hard on your body. And not only that, but whenever Onesimus gets to Rome, and he shows up, when he finally makes it to see Paul, knowing he sacrificed a great deal of time and money to get there, he has to search for him. He has to look for him. Where's he at? He's in Rome somewhere. Where did they put him? And he goes and looks for him and hunts him out. Understand that if you're looking for the person that's considered criminal number 1, they'll probably think of you as criminal number 2, won't they? And so they were looking for this guy, and Paul, and they captured him, and now this guy Onesimus comes in, and he wants to bring encouragement. It could have cost him his life to do this. It could have cost him everything. But oftentimes somebody will need us, and we don't even have a few seconds to talk to them. If you need me, call me. Okay? That's the way we should respond. Whatever it costs. Anytime. If you need anything, you call not only me, call anyone else. Because that's the way we should all be. We should be just like him who says, I'll do whatever it takes to refresh you, to encourage you, to build you up. Otherwise, you could be sitting there in depression. You could be thinking suicidal thoughts. You could be thinking, oh, God doesn't care for me anymore. Nobody loves me. Isn't that what Paul was thinking? Everyone's abandoned me. No one's here anymore.